Hi, Hana family. Welcome back to another episode. Gatlinburg, Tennessee it's a small town. There are roughly 4,000 people who live in the town. Yet every year, close to 12 million people visit Gatlinburg and the surrounding cities of Pigeon Forge and Sevierville. A big reason is because Gatlinburg is the gateway to the Great Smoky Mountains. But what you may not know is that it's also very, very haunted. At least according to the following stories. Sit back and enjoy the show. My mom is a skeptic to beat all skeptics. However, the story she came back from vacation with still makes the hair on my neck stand up. My mom, grandfather, my youngest sister, and her friend Carl went on vacation to Gatlinburg, Tennessee for a week. This has always been one of our favorite spots to go as a family, and we always stayed at the same hotel. This year, the hotel did not have our usual rooms available, so they took rooms in a new part of the hotel. It's further from the old section of the hotel, and up more in the woods. They had been there a couple of nights, and everyone was already sleeping, except for my mom, who had just showered. Granddaddy and Carl were in one room. Mom and my sister Barbara shared a connecting room. Mom lay down and turned off the lights, and within minutes, she felt the bed go down as if someone was pushing on it. She called out, "Daddy," thinking that he may be in trouble and need something, but she got no answer, so she assumed Carl was messing around, trying to scare them. She rolled over, and there, at the foot of the bed, was a small, very pale person with long white hair. The eyes were like a shark's eyes, and they were just staring at her. It was childlike, but not a child. She pulled the covers up way over her head and tried to wake Barbara, to no avail. After about a minute, she peeked, and the specter was gone. She turned on the light, and you could see where something had been sitting on the bed. My mom was terrified, because she had saw it with her own eyes. She didn't believe in ghosts, and felt that it was not a friendly visitor. The rest of the week was very uneventful, but we have not stayed there since. Story 2. Weekend at the cabin. My husband and I decided to have a getaway weekend in January of 1997. I made a reservation at some cabins we'd seen on a prior visit. The cabins were new and looked really nice. When we arrived, everything seemed fine. The owners were friendly, and the cabin was beautiful. It had a living room, kitchen area downstairs, with a bedroom, bathroom, and a jacuzzi. The upstairs loft also had a bedroom and a bathroom. We decided to sleep in the loft, and, like I said, everything seemed fine. We went out to dinner and visited the shops. When we got back, it was pretty late. After we had been there about an hour, I suddenly became violently ill. I can't explain it, except that I felt fine one minute, and the next minute I was sick. The sickness lasted maybe a half hour, and left me feeling very weak and tired. It was then that I began to get this really bad feeling. I wrote it off as just being sick. I felt like something wanted us to leave, but I thought that this was probably just the virus I'd picked up. So I went up to the loft to get some sleep. My husband stayed downstairs watching TV. Since it was a loft, there was just a half wall between us and the stairway. Later that night, I heard moving around downstairs. I heard the toilet downstairs flushing. I also heard the one upstairs flush. I was groggy and just wondered why my husband was moving around so much and why he was going to both bathrooms so much. But I was just dimly aware of it. Like when you're just barely awake, but you know something's going on. When I really woke up, it was early morning and was just getting light outside. I looked around the room. I saw what I believed to be my husband, standing at the dresser with his back to me, looking through my handbag and the other bag that I'd set on the dresser. Since the other bag was a little first aid kit, I thought he was looking for some medicine. I thought that he must have gotten sick, too. He already had his jeans on and was wearing a white thermal shirt. I started to ask him what he was looking for. When I did, I moved my hand. I tend to talk with my hands. And my hand hit my husband. He was lying right beside me in bed. I looked back at the dresser, ready to scream, but the man that I'd seen there had disappeared. I woke my husband up. Everything in the bags was just like I had left it. My husband then asked me what all the moving around and flushing was last night. Had I been sick all night? I told him that I thought it had been him. That's when we agreed that this place was really weird. But how could it be haunted? It was a brand new cabin. We thought about leaving, but decided to stick it out and have some fun and relax a little bit, and then see how we felt. After we got out of there, things felt better. We spent the day enjoying ourselves and returned that evening. But then I had the same bad feeling, but this time I wasn't sick. We decided to listen that night and see if our minds had been playing tricks on us. As soon as the lights were out, we heard footsteps downstairs. My husband flipped the light on and took off down the stairs. It sounded like a person was down there. Both the doors were locked, and nothing was there. He came upstairs and turned the light out. And there went the footsteps again. This time, they came up the stairs. We turned the lights on, and nothing. I wanted to leave right then and there. I would have slept in the car, but he was still skeptical. So we stayed, with the lamp on, and I barely slept. All night you could hear water running, something moving around, footsteps, etc. Finally, about daylight, we were both worn out from hardly any sleep and decided to pack it up and go on home. It was the day we were supposed to leave anyway. We've never been back there. We've driven by it, but we've never stayed in that cabin again. I don't know if anyone else has had a similar experience there or not. Maybe an old cabin was there before. All I know is I won't be staying there again. Story 3. The Gatlinburg Holiday Inn, Sunsbury. I worked at the Holiday Inn in Gatlinburg, as it was known back then, in the mid-1980s, as a desk clerk. Room 413 was still used as a guest room at that time. There was very few times that room could be occupied for an entire night. Most guests would check in, go to the room, and then return to the front desk sometime later and request to move to another room, sometimes within a few minutes. This was usually because the room had not been made up, as they would say. We had to put it on the newest housekeepers list because the ones who had worked there for a while would not clean it. If it was unoccupied, there was usually complaints that there was noise coming from that room. I can recall one of the guests' comments, as if it was today. When he checked out, he told me, "I almost called the police last night because the man next door to me was beating his wife. If I'd had a gun, I would have taken care of the problem myself." The room had been unoccupied the night before. Part of my job was to fill the cola machine in the tower on Wednesday of each week during the winter. We always rented the tower in groups on weekends during the winter because most of the time groups consisted of teenagers, and if we isolated them, they didn't bother our other guests. One night, it was dark, and I started filling the machines. None of the rooms were occupied. All of the housekeepers and maintenance personnel were gone for the day, and the security guard had not yet come on duty. We kept the entrance chained and padlocked. We were to unchain the doors and rechain and lock it from the inside once we were in. This was the first time I had started this late. Even though I had no knowledge of things to come, I usually tried to finish prior to 5 p.m. The first 4 floors were uneventful. I would complete 1 floor at a time, then return to the storeroom on the first floor to get more drinks. As the elevator approached the 5th floor, I could hear what sounded like a huge party. I even called the front desk on my radio to make sure we hadn't overlooked rooms that may have been occupied. When the doors opened, it was quiet as a tomb. Chills ran down my spine. I heard no more sounds on the 5th floor and continued with my task hastily. The 6th floor was uneventful. The 7th floor was the worst. As I left the elevator, I started to open the cola machine. I heard what sounded to me like a small dog whimpering. The sound was coming from the end of the hallway. I worked in Gatlinburg for many years at several different establishments, and it wasn't uncommon for people to leave many different items, including pets, behind in their rooms. As I approached the end of the hallway, the sound seemed to be coming from the next to last door on the right. I could hear the sound until I got almost to that door. I'm not sure, but I think the room at the time was 768. The sound stopped, and at this point, I knew that job did not pay enough for me to open that door. The drink machines on both 7 and 8 were left empty that night. It seems as though I couldn't get out fast enough. I never refilled the machines alone again. I've had other encounters over the 11 years that I've worked in Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg is a beautiful town that boasts 12 million visitors annually, but I'm sure this figure only refers to living visitors.